Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be talking about a unique way that you can heal yourself, perhaps, from any sickness or discomfort and disease through sound. Most people don't think about sound as a way to heal, but in this particular case, our guest today, who is the founder of SOUNDShifting, had been able to heal herself of hepatitis C and liver disease with sound and toning. Her favorite instruments for this are gemstone and mineral-infused alchemical singing crystal bowls that are therapeutic on a cellular level to affect the nervous system and change brainwave patterns. Interesting to say the least from an award-winning actress, Trish Devaney has been honored by the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and praised for her musical compositions and collaborations, so sound would be something she would be an expert in. Her book is SOUNDShifting, Your Personal Guide to Self-Healing with Sound. And I'd like to welcome to the program our guest today, Trish Devaney. Trish, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you, Daniel.
I would imagine you would be that you healed yourself from hepatitis C?
Yes.
How did that all happen?
Well, I had very little understanding about the disease itself. In fact, I think Western medicine had just named the disease itself because they had been calling it nonspecific AB. Then, right around the time I was diagnosed, they had finally put a name to it, and it was hepatitis C. And nobody really had a way to address this medically, so they were throwing a lot of things at it at the time. One of them was interferon, which is a form of chemical therapy. At that time, I rejected all Western modalities and instead found myself pursuing acupuncture and changing my diet and various other modalities for health and healing because I had a real attitude and a fear, certainly chemo, but around Western medicine. But my viral load kept increasing, and at one point, one of the doctors on the team left a message on my answering machine, and he said, "We're very sorry to inform you that your viral load is spiking in the millions, and we regret that there's nothing left for us to do. We suggest you get your affairs in order." So he had pretty much said that I was dying. Which was astounding because, and he left this on my answering machine, which was even more bizarre. So I got another doctor, and the new doctor, as a last-ditch effort, put me on interferon. And I went through a number of the typical changes, the severe weight loss, the hair loss, the sweat, etc. Right about this time, I had found a Tibetan bowl, and I started to play this bowl, and within moments, I was feeling a state of being, I guess you could say. I was a state of ease. And so I played this bowl every day, and I toned sounds every day, sounds that I had been using as an actor with my students in my acting company, and found that it was also increasing my level of ease. So I just continued with this, and within 3 months, the doctor, quite mystified, said that the virus was gone. He couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. So within, he was then testing me for a number of months and then years, and about 2 years out, because he was convinced it was going to come back. And but a nurse had taken me aside and said, at one of these visits, and she said, "You've got to understand why he's completely baffled by your situation." She said that you don't have a genotype that would have responded to interferon, so there's no medical reason for you to be well. And that's when I knew it was sound. Mm-hmm. From there, the journey is what it is today.
Now, that's what your book is about, man. It's much broader when you describe what this is all about, isn't it?
Yes. It's a journey that started very personally, but once I started to dive into what might have happened to me, I made some amazing discoveries that the sound isn't new to to our experience for healing, but also it is the fabric of the universe itself. It's the creative force. So when we start looking at what sound healing truly is, it's about really bringing through the application of sound and sound frequencies, the body, mind, and biofield, the electromagnetic field or the aura, into a state of harmony or resonance, as we call it. Mm-hmm. So, and that took me into the next level of inquiry, which was what effect the voice had in this equation, in this healing equation. So we know how sound influences the nervous system. But later I discovered what happens when the voice is used or engaged with these bowls, or even if you're just humming in your car, or and the effect that it has instantaneously on the function of the nervous system and the immune system. So it's pretty powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious, what type of support or research is there that actually shows that this actually heals and it has these healing capabilities?
Well, because I teach it at Canyon Ranch, which is a world-renowned, world-class resort, and so there are a lot of inquiring minds there. So that was what I had to pursue as well. Where's the efficacy of this experience? And I found, and I also studied with a gentleman by the name of Tom Kenyon, but in some of my research I found a bioenergeticist by the name of Fabien Mamon, and he, along with an MD at a Paris hospital, well, I can't name it right now, started to do the research on the impact of sound on the cell, and he began with various instruments. And there was little or no effect on the movement of the cell until he introduced his own voice. And when he did that, he noticed a remarkable change in the way the cell vibrated. So then he continued to pursue this and had several women who had various forms of cancer work with the tone of Ah, which is a very powerful heart-centered tone, which also stimulates the immune function. So he had these women toning the tone of Ah for a month, and he had them doing it, I believe, an hour and a half a day. I don't know if that was an hour and a half long or throughout the day. But by the end of that month-long period, each of the women had the mass, the cancerous mass, disintegrate into dust. So what he had surmised was that the application of sound impacts the cell so it invigorates the cell, and the unstable, or what we call fatal resonance, no longer has a host to hold that frequency, because that frequency of, let's say, the cancer is not native to the human body. That fatal resonance is able to take hold because of the level of stress we carry in the body, and that weakens the strength of the cell. So as you introduce the sound, and specifically the sound of the voice, you're able to strengthen the cell, and that cancerous resonance is able to dissipate. It's pretty amazing. And he actually has researched, he writes about that in his book called The Rise of Music, or The Role of Music in the 21st Century.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's pretty fascinating when you talk about, for instance, using tone to pretty much alleviate cancer, as you were talking about there, and that we continue to practice the healing of cancer the way we do here in America. Mm-hmm. And yet here you have, I would call it a relatively consistent result, correct me if I'm wrong,
yes.
Where this happens, this healing happens through this, and yet they don't explore it further. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, I have many thoughts on that, and I actually teach med students and medical fellows about sound and the application of sound in their practice. It's a younger group, so they're much more open to the integrative protocol. The old school guys and women are, and I have to say, those of us who come into that experience as patients, also are holding, a belief and an expectation that there's only one way to really mend or fix or change something. Mm-hmm. But more and more we're finding people who have been exploring alternate modalities are starting to awaken to these protocols that are available to them. And not everybody is going to heal in the way that they expect the healing to occur. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the gentleman who quoted this, but it's a quote that there's a difference between healing and curing. And healing is a state of bringing all things into resonance, body, mind, spirit, in a state of harmony. Curing is wiping out the symptoms. In my case, it was both. In some cases, the curing element doesn't occur, but the healing does. So the body, mind, and spirit experience is one of ease and peace that allows what's happening in the person's life to occur in a natural way. So if it's somebody's time, they're going to go. They can't fight it. So we move into a healing state through non-resistance. And non-resistance is quickly achieved through sound. So that's what I teach people to do, is how to open their voices, how to use sound, or how to listen to certain harmonics of sound that really bring the body, brain back into a state of healing resonance. That means that it's in its natural state and it's operating in an optimum capacity. So if it's your time, it is your time. But then if it is our time, it's we go in peace, we go without negativity in our hearts, and the transition is very easy. But yeah, it's a tough one. There's a lot of resistance, but we plod along, and more there is neuroscience that corroborates. There are Western medicine doctors, one very famous one, Mitchell Gaynor, who's an oncologist, has written about it and writes about it, and even works with crystal bowls with his patients.
Now, let's talk about those crystal bowls. What would they look like? How are they created?
That is such an extraordinary mystery, but they are created. I know parts of their creation. They are part of the semiconductor industry. It really was born out of Marcel Vogel's work in IBM with liquid crystal, and so they were really exploring the power of crystal as a transducer of energy and communication. But what they also found is the power of crystal to change what is a dense frequency to a higher frequency, creating what we call acoustic luminescence. So those applications, these crucibles were created to grow crystal that would be then put into computers. But what they found is these vessels carried an energy and a frequency. So that really brought about the first iteration of crystal bowls. And you see them today. They're the big white frosted bowls. They're wonderful. They have a great deep, wide sine wave, so they move. They're much slower in their field, in the sound field that they produce. But they really are wonderful for working with groups. They hold an energy. They keep everybody grounded. The bowls I work with now are what we call the alchemical or alchemy crystal singing bowls. And they're ones that are infused by gemstones and minerals and metals that enhance the properties of the quartz itself. So they start with very high-grade quartz, but when the ruby or the sunstone or the other gemstone, the diamond, is applied after that first firing where the crystal is deconstructed, that second firing when you're adding the gemstone is then reconstructing the quality of the quartz. And sometimes they add 3 and 4 firings, so there may be a mineral or a metal that's added to it. All of those applications enhance and stimulate the harmonic pattern, the acoustic pattern we call it, of that particular bowl. Then each bowl comes out with their own voice. And by the way, they're fired at somewhere around between 3,000 and 4,000 degrees.
Wow.
And then when they come out, they come out with their own voice and their own look, because they can't decide. The human factor cannot determine what its voice will be or how it will look, kind of like creation itself. It's not our job to choose it or to make it, force it to be one thing. So if you wanted, let's say, an F-tone bowl, which is a heart, they're very popular, that F-tone, you'd have to wait for one to appear. You can't manufacture a specific F-tone bowl. So they come out looking the way they're going to look, and then there's a way that they determine what the pitch is, and that's who you get. And each of these, because quartz is very much alive, these are, in my estimation, sentient beings. So each bowl has a personality. Each bowl, in my case, they kind of talk to me. Not that they have little lips and they say good morning, please, but they are a vibration that is stimulating my intuitive region, and I get certain things that they're trying to talk about. Certain bowls will be a harmonic activation. They will complement each other in ways that other bowls won't, and you'll feel it, you'll hear it. And I teach people how to find their bowl, because it's a specific sound signature that your body is requiring, that a certain bowl will match and feed. And so the first choice is always optical. People look at it and go, ooh, I like that color.
That's a pretty bowl, right?
That's a pretty thing. And then they play it, and it's sort of, not as dynamic. And every so often when I'm sitting with someone in our showroom, all of a sudden I'll hear something out of the side of my head, like some little voice is calling. I'll turn and I'll see a bowl that has been asleep to me for a long time, and I'll pull it out and I'll say, check this out. And they will, and all of a sudden every cell in their body lights up. So it really is about listening. It's about not choosing from the observable factors that we tend to live by, but instead letting that intuitive experience inform and be informed by yourselves. Your body's literally calling for that as food to bring harmony to the body.
I think it's fascinating when you take a look at what we're talking about here in Healing Through Sound, that we live in a world today with a lot of unnatural noise. And it's not a far stretch to think the reason maybe that you see disease and sickness so prevalent would be a result of that. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. When there is noise pollution, that creates stress on the body. Stress is the killer. Mm-hmm. When stress is dominant in the body, in the environment, everything starts to break down. The cells cannot thrive, and we can't function with optimum performance. It's interesting, too. People have levels of stress that they acknowledge that they have, and then they don't think that all this, what's going on in their body is also a level of stress. And watching a movie can be stressful. waking up can be a form of stress. So what I have found is that I work with the voice, and your voice, which is fascinating to me. Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, who heads the Center for Neuroacoustic Research, has done extensive research on the voice. And what he's found is that your voice, one's own voice, is the best delivery system for bringing harmony and healing frequencies to a specific organ or area of your body where there is, resistance or something stuck, where energy isn't moving. And it's born out of the primordial sounds that created each of us and each organ in our body, because each organ carries its own signature harmonics. So when the voice starts to open, and that's also what I teach people to do, is open that voice so that they're not just making noise, but instead they're creating sound from the whole body, the whole instrument, so that the breath is open down into the pelvic bowl, and that sound is moving through the entire torso, down through your feet. When that starts to open up, you feel a level of harmonics that the brain cannot comprehend, because the brain doesn't have the software to understand this. What happens instead is when you introduce sound, whether it's musical or primordial, the brain reorganizes the way it captures and organizes data. So if we have learned early on in our lives that life is hard, things are a struggle, money is at a premium, we can't have this or that, be quiet, don't be hurt, etc., etc. All of those are neural programs that we carry in the body that then are part of our guidance systems for a while until it shifts. What sound does is mitigate and change the way the brain is organizing those harmonics or those frequencies, and is able to restore the natural balance to the body-brain. So now you're able to function with greater attunement to your own intuitive awareness and knowledge. Over time, because sound is cumulative, the effects starts to grow, and you become more and more able to access your own instincts. So you're not asking somebody else, how am I doing? You are in place. You are standing in your own power, in your own resonance, and you know how you're doing. And your body then tells you, oh, right turn, left turn, rutabaga or turnip, greens or popcorn. And by the way, popcorn is a good food group. If you're choosing it, if your body wants it, that chocolate at that time is exactly the right resonance.
I think what's fascinating, too, about your book, Trish, is this. Okay, it's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but I was remembering watching an animal documentary. It had a lot to do with healing animals and veterinarians and the like. And there was one scene where a cat had been there for a couple of days because it somehow had been poisoned. And the way it was reacting, it was in this cage, ferocious, just really confused. It was really a disheartening thing to observe. And I was thinking as I was reading in your book, that came to mind when you were talking about the power of a person's thoughts and their words as vibrational health. And I thought, when you take a look at especially a society today with so much prevalent violence, whether you hear it or you view it through movies or even experience it through some of the music that's out there, and the foul language that tends to come out of a person's mouth and the sarcasm, you realize these thoughts and these words that these people call their personal expression are sort of a form of poisoning themselves. Yeah. What are your thoughts about something like that?
Well put. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And it's that toxic energy is what we're seeing in the world today, and we're all accountable for that.
Right.
And I have to say, the first person that I want to bring into the realm of compassion and forgiveness and loving kindness would be myself. because all of that toxic output comes from a place of static, toxic energy that lives or cuts off my heart-centered essence, or what we would call pure speech. So I really encourage people to look first at the way we have our own internal chatter, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, and to make an all-out effort to court ourselves, to bring ourselves to a place of remembering how very valuable and precious we are as human beings. It's from that place that we are able to extend that realm of compassion, that realm of kindness and understanding. But it all starts with us. And if I want to change the world, I get to change the way I am in the world. So if I'm driving in my car and I am, let's say, cut off by some really inconsiderate driver, somebody maybe flipping me the bird or something,
right,
my first reaction is going into a very distorted part of myself. I start to have this eruption. It's immediate. People will have that residual anger that sits there. Because of sound, I'm able to say, oh, yeah, that is a reflection of what's in my field, so let me shift it. And I will, in my car, I will do one or two different vowel tones. My favorite ones are usually the throat chakra one, which is an oo tone, or the ah tone. And I don't worry about the pitch. I just shape the resonance of that primordial tone or that vowel, and it changes the field. What that means is that it changes my output as a vibratory agent. It changes what I put out. When I'm putting something different out, everything lines up around me to be in that state of harmony as well. So that becomes then my influence on the planet. Is how do I take myself through my house, or how do I relate to my husband or my animals or my plants? All of this reflects the quality and state of my inner being. So the words then that come out have then focus. But it's interesting too, a lot of people speak without intention. It just rolls out. They don't think. So
sometimes their words are spoken, and they're just as empty as the calories we tend to eat.
That's right. Not a good food group.
Yeah, you're at a fast food burger joint there. There's no calories. You're going to feel full, just like your speech. It's full.
It's the jargon we get in. Because we're not connected to what's real in our being, so we're not able to respond to where we really live in our beings. We don't have an authentic experience. We're terrified to give authentic expression, to speak the truth. And that doesn't mean that the truth has to come out in a sour, grumpy way, but the truth is saying, I really don't work well when people start yelling at me, so I'm going to take a break. And when the room feels a little more calm, I'll be able to come back in and we can finish this meeting. That's a level of risk. It's a level of attunement, but it's almost that we are at a point now where we must start speaking truth and being part of changing the harmonics that live on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's interesting. Everything that's going on the planet is truly reflected of what's going on within us.
I agree. I remember some years ago I was doing an interview with a local dream practitioner, I guess, and he had written a book called The Madness of George W. Bush.
Right.
And it was funny because he took an interesting position about it to say this. He says there's a very real possibility that we all, through our dream and our thinking, actually manifested that this guy could either be our savior or he could be the Antichrist. But either way, consciously, selective, or as a whole thinking group, we actually brought this guy into existence. He was really the shadow of ourselves. And I thought, that was quite a stretch, but if you step back, put that ego aside and took a look at it and thought, well, if you look at the generations, there's probably a certain level of truth behind what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think more and more we have to step into accountability and understanding cause and effect in a very real way, that we are the source of our experience, we are the source of our thoughts, we are the source of our expression. We're everything. If we want to change it, we have to change, how we think, how we speak. The focus has to be turned back in on self, and we become accountable to our creations. From there, we have real power, because then we're choosing. And what I love about sound is its capacity, its ability, in a rapid way, to change the old program and restore what is native to us. And each one of us is different. We all have different signatures. So that cookie-cutter belief structure that all of us live in, or many of us live in, doesn't apply, because it's up to us. We are our own healers. We are our own arbiters. We're the ones who recognize what's right for us. But the real risk is deepening our awareness and our understanding. It's so easy and so convenient to operate where we think we're at the effect of others and the world around us. But when we take the risk to look to ourselves as the source of that harmony or disharmony, we start to create a world that is conscious, aware, awake. And I have to tell you, there's a lot more of that going on than we would think. There's a lot of harmony and a lot of goodness.
I agree with you, Trish. In fact, I was going to say on that note, it's interesting that if you watch the news, that there tends to be a lot of chaos and uncertainty. It could be a Fox News program talking about how you got to keep your doors and windows closed to keep an eye on the kids because they're about ready to be lifted and taken away from you. And yet when I step outside of my house and I look around me, I don't see the world they're presenting there at all.
Yes.
It's actually way kinder and more peaceful than they would have you believe.
Yes, indeed. And that meme, advertisers understand the power of neuroprogramming and memes, these threads that get flown out into the culture, into social media. And we can create our own meme which says, as I write about in my book, the doctors told me I was dying. They said it wasn't good. Every report came back bad. So, and my experience with hair falling out and night sweats and weight loss, I would say, because I wouldn't deny the truth, yes, I feel funky right now. And that "and" is the most important word in my language today. And I'm in a state of well-being. So I don't deny that the world is crazy. I don't deny that there are terrible, horrible atrocities happening all over the globe. And I'm in a state of well-being. And that I send to those out there who I know are in these war zones and these terror zones, I send the thought that harmonizes what we all know to be true, is that within them they have the power to understand how to move through this horror right now. I don't see them as victims. I see them as really finding the access point harmonically where they are able to shift and change and heal what's going on. And there is a great deal of healing going on. The women who come together and talk about the way they were treated with, and brutalized, and it's starting to happen. But I think that's part of what I give to the world. I've stopped giving money anymore, and I give energy. I give my thought, and the thought that says we are not victims, and we are all finding the power within us to change our circumstances that bring about a harmony throughout the globe and throughout nature.
I think what's fascinating, too, is when you take a look at tone, as we're talking about here, and you're talking about tonal energy, that vibration we send out. You can't deny that there is a physiological fact behind what you're talking about here. And an example of that is, having been in radio for more than 15 years, I've had the privilege to interview some very fascinating people just like yourself.
Thank you.
There are two people that come to mind, though, that I'll never forget. The first one is a gentleman by the name of Sakyong Mipalm Rinpoche, who actually is the son of Trungpa Rinpoche.
Oh, wow.
And he's really responsible for setting up a couple of Shambhala Buddhist centers here in America, one of them being in Portland, Oregon, and the other in Colorado, if I remember.
Yes.
And I had him come in, and this was an amazing experience. I went out to the lobby to receive this gentleman, and he is just dressed down in the Buddhist garb. I was like, that was interesting enough. And then he also had a single-person entourage along with him, I guess, carrying a pillow and his other clothes. I don't remember what it was. But the thing that was fascinating was coming into this large room to receive him and bring him back into the studio, there was this tremendous sense of calm. And, I mean, we're talking to the level, it felt like you could walk out into a battlefield by this guy's side, and you just knew there would be no harm that would come. It was almost though as he had this force field around him of calm. And that was incredible to feel all that in that whole entire room, and it was a very large room. The other one was a gentleman by the name of Martin Prechtel, who happened to be initiated through a series of dreams down to an actual Mayan village to become a ceremonial flute player. And he wrote a couple of wonderful books, and he's a great storyteller. As I met this gentleman, I just immediately felt this playful, childlike, I really feel good around this guy kind of energy, And so when you talk about what you're sharing here with our listeners about, tonal vibrations with the ability to heal and to bring that calm and that peace, these are true energetic signatures. Think about how you feel when you go to a concert, For instance, the opera, I think, has probably such a tremendous worldwide effect because it does that very thing.
I couldn't agree more. And it really is time to move into that in a conscious way. We can't. It's not about waiting any longer. It's about choosing in this moment to release any resistance that I have in my system. That's really where it starts. You may not even be able to name the resistance. It's not important. You may not even be able to touch where you're holding it yet. But you make a conscious choice to open your mouth and you make a sound. And if you're, as I talk with people, sometimes it takes a crowbar to open that mouth because of the fear we have of that exposure. It's the most naked part of it. So I have them hum, and humming starts the energy moving. And I encourage them after they hum a bit to then open their mouth and let the sound begin to come. That's then where we are able to send out frequencies of harmony and love and balance and ease, where it's authentic. We're not just pulling a thought out of thin air and saying, I want you to be happy, while we're all filled with agitation. If I truly want to send happiness, I send it from a place where my physical being is holding that harmonic, it's holding that frequency, and it's from that where I send the truth. I remember one time I was on a phone call with a gentleman, and we were negotiating a contract, and it wasn't really going very well. And I thought, oh no, didn't know how to change it, didn't know how to turn it around, and he got a call and he excused himself, put me on hold. In that flash of a second, I said to myself, I need to change this energy now. And I had about a half a second to make this one sound, which I did. It was the throat chakra sound. He came back on, and it was as though somebody had given him the winning lottery ticket. He had a different mindset. And I knew that I hadn't changed his mind, nothing that I did. What I did is change the dial. Mm-hmm. I dialed into a different harmonic, a different part that was able to receive and activate and have that be dominant between us. And then we finished our contracting, and it worked out great, win-win for everybody, and it was done. That was the most evident. I mean, at that time I was sort of just beginning to play with this kind of work. And I thought, wow, we are truly sitting on such power that if we knew about it, we could change the world in a nanosecond.
Mm-hmm. I think, too, for our listeners, Trish, to be aware of is the fact here you're in the performing arts. You've been practicing sound healing and toning techniques for more than 20 years. Mm-hmm. And why I wanted to specifically bring that up is sometimes when people might hear an interview like this or think of a book that says SOUNDShifting, they think of some New Age fanatic that ran out there and discovered something really cool and decided to throw it into a book, a little paraphrasing, but really make it theirs. Yeah. And you're wondering, they're kind of, I'm not so sure about this, but to give you an idea, there's a gentleman I interviewed over in England who actually wrote a wonderful book, which is a book you pick up and you use what he put in there, and that is called The Alchemy of Voice. Mm-hmm. And he is just like you, where he has been working in theater for some 30-plus years. So this is an interesting background that, you come from a performing arts background to bring this to people. And it gives a sense of real groundedness, legitimacy, if you will. That it isn't something that's out there and fluffy and magical with a wand, but a real grounded practice of reality. And sound, it just makes a lot of sense.
Well, it does. And as little ones, we played with sound, and we would make these intonations and play and discover.
Like humming in a car while it's driving, and getting to that sense where you're humming along the sound pitch of the engine. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Like in Rain Man.
Yes. And that little childhood impulse is a way to harmonize a room. Mm-hmm. If you're coming into a room and you feel a little bit agitated, start to listen for the range of the room tone that might be from the air conditioner or the heater or a generator of some sort. Whatever's around, find it, match it. Mm-hmm. Tone with it, hum with it. And then you may even play with harmonics on top of that. You're now, or one is, harmonizing the room. So now whatever happens in that room is holding a frequency that is beneficial and natural to you. Mm-hmm. I don't think people realize how powerful we are.
No, and if they did, they wouldn't feel so victimized.
Well, and that victimization is something that is like a meme. It's borne out over many years of I told you so's and corroborated by world of events. Not understanding that it's the frequency output that is matched. Physics tells us that like attracts like. So if we're putting forth a sense of being victimized by circumstances outside of our control, we are going to continually walk into those circumstances outside of our control and feel victimized by them. And, what I found with healing is that I had to not feel bad about doing that. It was just a doorway, a learning. Like my hepatitis and liver disease was not about doing something bad, or someone's cancer isn't about being bad and failing at something, but instead it was a gateway. It was a doorway, and understanding that I had patterns that were creating disharmony in my body or in my thoughts or even in my spirit that I was perpetuating. When I realized I was the creator of those experiences in terms of cause and effect, I felt such power and able to shift. But the shifting never ends. The journey continues. Mm-hmm. We're never done. with that.
There's always a way that God, if you will, finds a way for us to tone our muscles.
Well, and my body will show me how it's done and where I'm out of whack. I may feel a pain somewhere, or I may trip on something, or all of those are going, oh yeah, those are, something is indicating some imbalance here. And if I'm out of balance, let me just do some sound here. It brings me back in. I tell you, it's amazing how quickly it changes, but also that it's portable and it's free. And it's something that anybody at any time could begin to use, whether you're in the subway, in a car, in an airport where you're feeling frustrated. Just start humming. If you can't open your mouth and make a full-on sound, just hum. Nobody will hear you. There's too much going on. And you find your body more grounded. I talk to a lot of people who fly and have great fear around flying. So I have them find the tone of the engine as they're taking off, because that's where they have the greatest anxiety, and begin to match that sound and tone with it. You entrain with the field in that plane, and you now feel that sense of groundedness, even though you're rising in the silver bullet up into the sky. And the fear dissipates. Mm-hmm. There's a connectivity that happens where we are in a nanosecond multidimensionalized, so that we feel a part of a whole that defies description in the linear thought. But we feel it in our being. We feel that connection. Some people call it a connection with the angels, or with guides, or with spirit. And some just feel connection to the vast infiniteness of life at every level. But that's what we feel a direct connection to.
What exercise for our listeners could you introduce them today to start with that could help them start becoming or sensing and feeling that groundedness you're talking about today?
I have a favorite.
Now, we don't want to do the snake breath. That was a fun one, but
Right. No, we won't do that today. But just letting the jaw go, just letting it slacken, letting the tongue release inside that jaw. There's so much involuntary tension that's caught in the face that feeds the way the body rhythm functions. So we maintain our stress by gripping our teeth and holding tension in our tongue and our jaw. So many people get TMJ, or they have digestive issues. All those digestive issues start with the mouth. So I would have people just relax the jaw, let it go, even if it feels like the mouth is dropping 1.5 feet, and you feel like you're going to start to drool. You won't. But the mouth will start to release. Every part of your body starts to relax. The shoulders will drop down. The arms will feel almost heavy, and you'll feel in place. And the quality of breath changes. You start taking in more air. You can breathe into your back and into your belly with greater ease. So I would start with that. That's a great one to do. And I even encourage people, if they want to do this for 7 days, put little Post-its around the house with the word jaw on it, and put it wherever you frequent.
So the idea is to allow the jaw to relax open?
And relax.
Okay.
So you take a moment and just let go, and the jaw softens. So if they have their little Post-its out there for 7 days, every time their eyes rest on that or notice that Post-it, they stop and just let the jaw go. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, the body starts getting trained to do that automatically. So you realize, oh my gosh, I've been operating in this gerbil cage. Let me just let go. And within 7 days, you will have trained the pattern in your brain. So you will have a neural network that's set up to relax your jaw. And then on top of that, I would have people just sigh, real easy, out loud. Ah. Something like that is so easy. And, people will say to me, I do that and people freak out. Everybody asks, are you okay? And because people think it's a sign of distress. In one case, it certainly could be because it's a way to de-stress your body. But don't stop doing it because other people are going to ask you to stop sighing out loud. Just,
That's funny, Trish, because there was a time where I actually did that. And it was at a place I was working, a restaurant, and the manager was kind of giving me a little criticism in a humorous way. And I said, but don't you notice that when you do that at the right time, and to me it was a very spontaneous sigh as you're talking about, it just feels good. It's like you're letting something out of your body just go.
Yes. Exactly, especially if you're working with food. You want to go out and just,
I even encourage them to do it.
Yeah,
just
indeed.
try it. You'll feel good.
Yeah. I mean, but many folks, especially in a workplace environment, they are, there's a reaction to making sound. Even in the world of actors, if you can believe it, people like to warm up in silence, and it's not natural. Well, let's just say it's not natural for me, because I can awaken the creativity in my own body. And I have greater access to all the parts of me that lives and creates in the moment. My spontaneity is increased. My intuitive abilities are increased. When I come into lecture, there's a lot of expectancy in the audience. And I have them sigh out loud first so we can change the energy in the room. And so like the workshop I'm doing in Portland is finding your body's voice and sounding it out. Mm-hmm. Because our body is holding so much unutterable, unexpressed sounds that don't have to have a name. It's just we want to move the energy so that it doesn't stay caught and stuck in the system.
Now, you do offer classes, it sounds like, that you're going to be doing a workshop in Portland, Oregon, right?
I am. I do classes all over the country, but yeah, the one coming up is one of my favorites. It's find your body's voice and sound it out. Mm-hmm. And it's centered around what I was just talking about, really making contact with this instrument called the body and awakening it. And it can't wake up if we don't allow what lives inside to move out. So we'll be doing some sounding and some fun and just some abstract kind of sounds and awakening the body as it wants to move and release and increase creativity and increase all forms of natural harmony in the body.
Mm-hmm. I bet you've probably seen some really fascinating life changes from people who have engaged in being able to use sound and tone techniques for healing, as you call it.
Absolutely. And some have been instantaneous. People coming in with back pain and just making sound. It's just gone. Mm-hmm. And so because what they're releasing is whatever the resistance of holding back, because oftentimes I look at the literal expression in the body indicators, holding back is a holding of energy. So moving that sound out, whatever the sound is, without judgment, it helps to relieve that pain and that stress. People cry because it's a tributary to new shores. It helps them to release what lived there. And so often we have many kinds of and variations of grief and sorrow that we hold in the body that never get expressed. Mm-hmm. But it has to go somewhere, and its energy does not stay static. So it will start to internalize. So we'll see it. That's what happened with my liver. and other parts of our bodies that may start holding. If we have gastrointestinal issues, we can take a look at what is it we can't stomach, what's going on here, and bring the body back into a state of balance. And sound is an extraordinary way to do that. And I would, if somebody's taking medication for diabetes, I would never say get off your medication. But what starts to happen is the sound is able to extract the best possible frequencies from that medication and make it possible for you to either, eliminate over time or lessen the dosage. But I would never encourage anybody to do a dramatic drop-off of medication. But the body is always seeking to find its natural method of staying in balance.
Mm-hmm.
So the sound, even when I was doing the chemo, I could feel that the sound I was making was taking the best part of this medicine and eliminating the rest. In some cases, there was no good part of the medicine, and it was just being eliminated. But I would say that out loud. I would tell my body to do that. And the body always will respond to the dominant frequency of what's in our thoughts and our words.
Mm-hmm.
So I would speak it out loud and just know. I didn't have to examine my eliminations to see, if I could identify a particle coming out. It was just, I just knew energetically, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then I would say, and I'm in a state of well-being. So it really is about tuning the whole instrument in the thought process, in the breathing process, in the harmonic and sound and action. All of that is bringing forth a healthy, vibrant, creative, masterful being in each of us.
Very well said. Trish, I was just thinking in the last minute or two that we have here, here's something that we might address that might have our listeners get a really good idea about how this can help. Now, there will be a lot of people that will listen to this, and they go to work every day, 5 days a week, and they have what are known as the Monday morning blues. You remember what that was like?
Yep.
It's been a long time since you've experienced it, I'm guessing. I know it's been a while for me, and I'm so glad I don't experience Monday morning blues, but there are a lot of listeners out there that do. What could they do in this sound shifting to maybe start clearing that away where, work isn't so bad, and Monday's a great day?
Well, and that's a great day to start it, because that's where there's a great deal of resistance. But I would start just making a sound of ah. Start your day with ah. And then choose to say, today is Monday, and I'm choosing to see myself in this day having a great time. Mm-hmm. In any way. Just, yes, I'm filing away.
And I allow myself to have a great time today.
I'm just going to, and I'm going to just feel elements of acceptance and joy. Yeah, Mondays are tough, and I'm going to have a great day anyway. Mm-hmm. So that you're practicing that bridge between the reality, because you don't want to say, I'm going to have a good day, nothing bad's going to happen.
Right.
It's not Monday, it's really Friday. So you say, yeah, Mondays are crazy days, and I'm going to have fun today. I'm going to meet somebody new. I'm going to have a great encounter on break, or I'm going to find a great place to eat. Something really wonderful is going to happen today. Mm-hmm. And I'm awake for it. I'm here for it. Then the sound allows you to encode that into your cells as a harmonic imprint. And I know that sounds like gobbledygook, but what happens is the sound optimizes that thought. Mm-hmm. And then just let go and do what you love to do that day.
Right.
But if somebody is doing something they don't like to do, my greatest gift to them is to find a way to do what you love to do, not what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if that means that you might have to look at what you really want to do in this job. If you really want to do a different job, then begin to entertain the idea of what you might do to create that something that makes you feel vibrant and alive. I mean, you did it. I did it. Many people do it. And there are people who are in the corporate structure who love it, for whom it is what brings them great joy and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not bringing you joy and happiness, it's just time for you to move into something that does. So let yourself be aware that if you're really uncomfortable, start to let your sound help you create a new, more exhilarating expression of your creative self.
That's right. You can start by sound shifting, which is the title of the book. It's your personal guide to self-healing with sound. Our guest today, Trish Devney. Trish, is there a website people can find out more about your work and where you're going to be in this world as you're conducting these workshops?
Indeed there is. It is called SOUNDShifting.com. So people can go there, and there's different CDs that I have available. I'm going to be in Portland this weekend doing a concert on Saturday and then a workshop on Sunday. But my calendar is there, and yes, so they can visit SOUNDShifting.com, and there's a plethora of information there for them to finger through. So.
Well, it sounds to me, Trish, like you've certainly manifested the reality of what the Beach Boys were singing about years ago, and that is good vibrations. Thanks for being on the program with us today.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you.
You bet. Again, the website is SOUNDShifting.com, where you can find out more about this. Folks, it works. Just do it. And besides, just like Trish was saying earlier in the program, it's free and it's always with you. Why not? We also encourage you to visit us at our website at Beyond50Radio.com. That is the number 50, and become a Beyond 50 insider by signing up for our exclusive e-news updates. We want to thank you again for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.